All right. Well, hey, here we are back again. Episode 12. If you can believe that. That's 12 hours that we've put in together. Not too bad. Not too bad, you know.
I'm surprised that you're still going.
Well, it's not me. It's like, hey, you got things to say, I'm always willing to listen if you're willing to talk. It's when you run out of things to talk about, that's when I think we just maybe dial it back, maybe take a few months off, or you'd have some adventures to come back to tell us about what's going on.
There you go.
So, I've been thinking about it because we talk about all kind of different things, and in my office they actually give me a hard time because I have a saying that is directly and completely correlated to you. And it is, we'll be sitting there chatting, things will come up, and I'll be like, you know what? That reminds me of a joke. And
Oh,
and so like everybody's like, oh man. I was like, nah, man, I used to tell this joke all the time. And so then I'll tell my joke, and then everybody's like, God, dude, you just told that like 2 weeks ago. I was like, no, I was like forever ago. So you are a man of many, 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 many jokes. So, that's, I thought, tonight we might break it up a little bit because we've talked about some serious things. We've talked about, different things that have happened in your life, accomplishments, different things. But tell me about jokes. Like, you were like the Grandmaster Flash when it came to telling jokes.
I used to get a lot of them at work. People would come in and they knew I liked jokes, but I could only remember like three. So if I got a new one of them had to drop off. But I'd tell the same joke quite often until I heard a new one, and then it would drop off. I was really quite surprised at how international most jokes are. I went to Canada hunting bear, and they picked me up in Saskatoon, and it was about a 2 hour drive up to where we were hunting bear. And there was a guy and his girlfriend picked me up, one of the guides, and we told jokes all the way up. And he never told me one single joke that I hadn't heard before. And that was in Canada. So, but anyway, most of the jokes that I know and told, I'm not going to tell.
Oh, no, I'm not asking you. Yeah.
It's
like,
it's like when Mom was towards the end of her life, when she was 90, she got to the point where she would had to have somebody with her 24 hours, and so we used to take turns staying with her. And one night it was my turn, and they had a cot in alongside of her bed, and the reason is because she'd get out of bed and feel like that she had to go to the restroom, and her equilibrium wasn't too good, and she'd fell on her face and blacked her eyes and stuff, and so we had to watch her pretty close. And one night I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I look up, and she's sitting on the edge of her bed, and she said, "Do you know any jokes?" And I said, "None I'm going to tell you, Ma." And so then she told me a little humorous story, one that would fly. But anyway, that's the way.
do you remember what that joke was?
I do. It was a story about a gal that was going through riding a train, and it was dark in the tunnel, and you heard a kiss and then a slap, and they come through to figure out what would happen, who was involved. And it turns out that the girl had kissed the back of her hand and slapped the guy next to her. and nobody knew who the culprit was. But anyway, it was a pretty good story. I don't remember it exactly, but I remember starting to tell it, and it was a good thing because I'd already heard it before, so I knew what she was talking about. But anyway.
That's what I'm telling you, man of many jokes. You know, I grew up. I remember in second and third grade, like I had a teacher ask me if I even knew what my joke meant. And I was like, I got no idea. I just know it's funny as hell because my dad told it and people laugh. And she's like, don't tell that joke again. And I was like, okay, well, that's fair.
That's probably a wise thing.
You know, now though, as I'm an adult, I tell those jokes quite often.
Really?
Like I said, I get a hard time about it in my office. You know, that reminds me of a joke. And so there you go. So anyway, that's something I thought I'd just touch on real quick. Is you're always having a joke. I remember that at Harrington's, everybody used to come in, tell you jokes, and you'd tell jokes. And anyway, just one of those things that.
Yeah, I always had to listen. A lot of them weren't that great, but once in a while you get a pretty good one, and then one would drop off, and I'd add that one to the repertoire. But it's like you said, something will remind me of one, and then I would tell it. But like when I went to Canada, like I was there for 2 hours, we did nothing but tell jokes back and forth. And I'd heard every one, so I heard a few.
For sure, I'm sure. I mean, as many people came through your office, and as many people knew you were the jokester.
Yeah,
yeah. So that's awesome. Anyway, that's pretty much where I thought we'd start out. Is just talking about that. But tell me, you talk about Grandma and spending that time with her. There at the end, how many nights did you go over there and spend with her?
And I had a turn once a week. We'd spell each other off, and I went up there, I don't know, 5 or 6 times there at the end. And Ruthie was down the basement and living there, and she'd take care of her during the day. But she had 4 or 5 kids and a husband, and so she'd go downstairs at night, and I'd show up about 7 o'clock. But as it turned out, Ruthie would stay up and talk to me, and we'd joke and talk till about 11, and then she'd finally go downstairs. But Mom was seeing all kinds of people and stuff, and so when I went I laid down with all my clothes on. I didn't want people looking at me when I was... I just, it was funny.
That's cool. Yeah, good old Grandma. That was good times.
Yeah, she was quite the gal. She loved to party and laugh and make jokes and stuff. Dad was a lot more serious, and I didn't see him belly laugh very much. Mom did.
Oh yeah, no, it's one of those things. A belly laugh is one of those things that very, very worthwhile. In fact, I think we've talked about it. Is your belly laugh and letting back and just letting it rip. And it's always when you're eating potato salad. It's just a given. If we're having potato salad, I know I'm seeing a mouthful of my dad's potato salad.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy a good joke. I remember on one occasion at work we pulled a joke on a guy. I don't know if I told this story.
Not here, so go ahead, please do, because I know this story and it is a great story.
There was a great big guy he was from Poland, which fit the jokes of the time. There used to be a lot of Polak jokes going around. But he was a professional football player. I mean, he was big, and he came into the office and had a brand new car, a brand new Chevrolet. And so while he was in the office, they got the heister and lifted it off the ground and put some blocks underneath the rear axles so that it was just barely touching the gravel. We had gravel in the yard at that time. And he left the office and went out and got in the car. And I was watching him out through the back window, and he put it in reverse and so was spinning the wheels. And man, I mean, he's had the gas on pretty good, and then threw it in park. And I thought he was going to rip the transmission out. But anyway, finally he came in the office and borrowed the phone, and he called over to Jerry Seiner Chevrolet and said, "There's something wrong with my car." And I says, he said, "Well, what's it doing?" You could tell by the conversation. He said, "I don't know." He says, "The wheels go around, but the car won't move." And I was literally laying on the floor in the office, holding my stomach. I was laughing so hard I couldn't even take it. And he was a little upset with me. He didn't think that was funny at all, you know. So while he was in calling, one of the other guys, they jerked the blocks out from underneath it. And one of the other guys says, "Well, why don't you let me try it? I've got a Chev. Let's see if I can make it work." And so he said, gave him the keys, and he went out and got in it and backed it out and pulled around alongside the office. And he said, "Well, what did you do?" So anyway, he runs back in and calls Jerry Seiner on the phone again and said, "They were going to send a wrecker over." He said, "We don't know what it is, but we'll send a wrecker over and see if we can figure it out." So he called them and canceled it. And then he drove away. And about, I don't know, it was 4 or 5 days later, he come back in the office again, and he said, I asked him, I said, "You had any more trouble with your car?" And he said, "No," but he says, "I say a Hail Mary every time before I start it up." But anyway, it was funny. I'm telling you, that was one of the best ones we pulled on him. But I used to tease him all the time. But I told one joke, and he got a little upset with me. But anyway, at one time I said, "You want to see a pull-out trailer?" And he said, "Yeah, okay." So I just led him around and around and around the office until he finally caught on what was going on. But anyway.
That's funny. Yeah, I've heard that story, you know, as far as like you know, jacking up that car. Those are you know, practical jokes and different things. Just hilarious, man. So, did you do a lot of practical jokes as a kid? You know, with your brothers?
Not really. I didn't know, not much. I didn't like them pulled on me, and so I didn't pull them on too many other people, because sometimes they tend to reciprocate.
No, that tends to happen. You know, if you can't accept it, then you know it's tough to deal it. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I figured.
That's cool. No. So you just went down and spent some time with Paul, I know, and you know, how was that? How was it seeing Paul and Claudia and hanging out with them?
It was good. It was Paul's had 2 strokes now, and he has a hard time doing a lot of things. We just come back, you know, to fishing. We talked about that, and we had to take care of him pretty good. And so that's why I had a week where I didn't have anything going, and so I volunteered to drive him down. They have a cabin down at Capitol Reef, and it's a pretty nice place. It's on about 14 acres and has a gorgeous view of the Boulder Mountains and Thousand Lake Mountains, and so we just went down there and stayed in the cabin mostly, and he sleeps a little bit, but we stayed up and watched TV and built a fire in the fireplace, and he's got a man cave that he's built, and hung out. It was good times. He and I have been pretty close my whole life. done a lot of hunting and fishing and stuff together. When I was quite young, before you were old enough to do anything, my brother Bob was a big hunter, and he started going with his wife's family deer hunting. And my oldest brother was over in Hawaii and lived over there. And Mervyn was not much of a hunter to begin with, and so me and Paul used to go deer hunting together every year, and we hung out together and played cards and New Year's Eve and all that stuff.
Oh, I remember the late nights of Pinochle.
Yeah, we played a lot of pinochle together, and New Year's Eve and all that stuff. We spent it together. He's been a good. All my brothers are good though.
Yeah. No, I understand. Did you ever cheat at Pinochle?
No.
Shut up. This is an opportunity for you to be honest.
Okay, I'll lie for you. Yeah, I cheated. No, I never. I always. It's like golf, you know. There's guys that I play with, and I catch them cheating on their, you know. But I play to try to improve myself, not to beat somebody else. You know, I don't care what the score is. I played the other day, and this lady beat me, and it was kind of a blow to my ego, but I still gave my right score. You know.
Mm-hmm. No, I get that, but. You know, as far as a competitive nature is concerned, there are few that I've met that are more competitive than you. And so that's where I'm just curious if you had like any little nuances or little like, you know, as far as playing Pinochle, if you had any code words or said anything to like tip each other off on what suit.
Well, maybe a little bit once in a while, but not much.
Okay. No, I'm just, you know, I'm curious. If you say you never cheated, then by God, I will take that.
Well, I can't remember.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Okay. That's it. That's a better answer. Oliver North.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have no recollection of what took place.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
Okay. I was just asking, you know. No worries. Yeah, Paul, he's did you help him build that cabin?
I did, and not nearly as much as he hired a contractor to do most of it, but I went down there several times, and because he finished the interior himself, he hired somebody to frame it and stuff, but hanging sheetrock and stuff. But he spent a lot more time down there than I did. But yeah, I'd help him whenever I could. That and his own house. We remodeled the one up in Midway, and then he built one for his daughter, Virginia, over in Aber, and I went up there several weekends and helped him on that one.
That's cool. Where did you learn how to do all that stuff, like as far as like sheetrock and like building and everything like that?
Well, Dad was a jack of all trades. I said he was a jack of all trades and a master of none. But he poured concrete and he remodeled our house. And he went down and just some guy was plastering. Back then it was lath and plaster, but then they came out with a sheetrock that had holes in it instead of lath. And
what's lath?
Lath is a thin piece of wood that is about a quarter of an inch thick and about 1 inch wide, or 3/4 of an inch wide, and they would nail it on the wall and leave a space between it, and then they would put a plaster over the top of it, like cement, a thin cement, coat of cement type stuff, and that's how they held it on. And then when they remodeled the house when I was a kid, he'd build on the front room. Then they'd come out with kind of a sheetrock that was a lot easier to put on than lath, but all it was a sheetrock with holes in it, and then you'd press the mud up through the holes, and that's what held it on instead of the boards. And Dad just went down and watched some guy do it, and come back and did ours, and that's kind of. You ought to have seen me hanging 8-foot sheetrock. I mean, 10-foot sheetrocks on the ceiling by myself down the basement when we did our place. But I just did it. Watched. I helped Paul do some on his kid's place, and then I tried it myself. And I'm telling you, then you sand it off, and I found out there was more dust on the floor than there was sheetrock mud on the ceiling when I got through. But anyway, just kept working on it till I finished PHILLIP's room down on Edgware Lane first. And I thought paint would cover up a lot of it, but I found out that it did not. And so when I moved out into the family room, then I was more careful and knew what I had to do. But I finished the basement down on Edgware Lane, and then I came up and did the one up on 47th, and then I moved out to Draper and had to do that one, and then I moved from there to where I'm living now, and tore that place all the way to par. They had it sheetrocked. It was framed and sheetrocked, and the biggest piece of sheetrock was about, I don't know, maybe 2 foot square. It was just pieces. And the only thing I can figure is he was using it for backer and was going to use paneling. And so I tore it all out, and when I got it torn out, the framing was so crooked that I tore out all the framing and had to start all over, rewired it, re-sheetrocked it, and did the whole thing.
You'd be surprised. You know, he probably wasn't using it for backer. He was probably he probably just was getting the pieces that he could get, you know.
I don't know. I was amazed when I saw it.
Yeah. No, I've seen some basements. And you're like, what the what? So, no, that's cool. That's cool. Just self-taught, just trial and error.
Right, yeah. Yep.
That's cool. Any other projects you're working on now as far as like, you know, building or like, you know?
No, I've given up on it. I'm too old. Linda wants me to build a shed out in the back. And, first it was too cold, and then it was too hot. Now it's too cold again. So I said, well, maybe next year.
She want a she shed? Is that what it is?
Yeah, she wants something to put all the stuff out of the garage and where to store flowers and stuff.
That's what storage units are for, Linda. You go rent one of those.
There you go.
Oh, that's awesome. Any trips coming up, this winter? Or are you getting ready to go anywhere exciting or new?
No, not really. A couple of weeks, I'm going back up to Oregon again on the pheasant hunt. I've been up there for, it's probably been close to 25 years running now. Except the only time I missed was 1 year while I was down in South America on
your mission.
On the mission, but I was only down there a year and a half, and I left right after. I always go the first week in November, and I left to go on my mission in January, and so I only missed 1 year because the mission was 18 months, and so I was back in time to go.
There you go. That's cool. And that reminds me, I was going to say, you said that Paul's had 2 strokes. Now, you had a stroke.
I didn't have a stroke. I had what they call a TIA. It's different than a stroke. It's a mini stroke is what it is. I had one. I've had 2 of them actually. One of them was when you got married, and John was there. And what happened was I I couldn't pick up a cup of water with my left hand. And I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to disrupt your wedding. And so after everything was done, then I had John drive me down to the emergency, and they checked me out. And by the time they were through, a couple of 3 hours later, it was past. And then I had one that was, I don't know, that's been 20. How old is your daughter? So that's got to be 20-something years ago, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I've been married 21 years.
So it was 21 years ago. And then I had one about 3 years ago about the same thing. I was on my way out to the temple, and it was really funny. I just couldn't talk. And so I was driving. My sister says, maybe you better take me home. And so I turned around and drove home. And then my wife took me up to the hospital, and they checked me in and spent the night there. But 2 days later, I was up in Oregon pheasant hunting, so it wasn't anything critical. But I had nothing like Paul had. He was down for the count, but they got him and got that shot into him. They only have so many hours, and they have to, in order for it to counteract it. But I'm nothing like that.
Word. No, it's just one of those, things, life-changing events that you can, look at and see, big differences that take place. So anyway, man, what else you want to talk about, man? Like I'm drawing some blanks here, bro. Like I was hoping for more on the whole joke thing. You shut that down pretty quick. So it's like, we 24 minutes in, and I'm like, I'm like, my material's running dry. Is there something specific you like to talk about?
The problem with me is I can't remember what I've already told you. So I don't.
Well, it depends. You can break down some stuff. Maybe there's something that's sticking in your craw, something you want to share. I mean, I'll be honest with you. We're coming up on 12 hours, and we've covered a lot of good stuff and a lot of good things. And I mean, been very, very grateful for the opportunity to sit and talk and share some of these life experiences that you can put, in your back pocket, and people will always remember. There are certain stories that I'll always remember about my father, and you've shared a lot of them. And there's some that that you haven't, but it's like it's really at this point it's kind of like what would you like to say? Because what I'm looking at is, let's say that tonight was it. Let's say that this was the last episode that we decided to do. What would you like to say? I mean, you got literally a captive audience. You got your kids, you got your grandkids, you got your great grandkids that are going to see this. And that's the thing. I want you to envision that for just 1 second. Like, take that vision and hold it in your head. This is an opportunity for you to pass something to somebody. This isn't a journal. This isn't a book that I'm reading. This isn't cold words on paper. This is you. This is Philip Ray Arnold speaking to his posterity. What are you going to say?
Goodbye. No, I'm kidding. The thing, probably it would be to talk a little bit about the family, I guess, and the relationship I had with my children when I was growing up, when they were growing up. I used to really enjoy talking and with you kids when you were younger. I think about John and what he was like when he was a little kid, he was so independent. It was always myself. And I saw him from the very beginning when he was uh, learning how to dress himself. And boy, you didn't touch him or he got mad. And sometimes we'd go to church with his shoes on the wrong feet and his shirt button went off. But he wanted to take care of it himself. And Julie was about she was I just really enjoyed her. She would in the middle of the night if she got sick, I'd hear her calling Dad, and I'd get out of bed, and one time she was throwing up and cleaned her up and held her. And then when she was real young, she got typhomeria, and the doctor said that it was typhoid fever, and I looked that up in the medical book, and it said that the majority of them die. And she had a hard time breathing, and we had a rocking chair that I'd got out of the top of the barn and refinished it, and I was holding her in my arms, and I didn't know if she was going to live the night, and I had to hold her up because she couldn't breathe if you laid her down very well, and I begged the Lord to let her live, and she did, and I was so thankful for her. She she was she went with me a lot. I mean, I remember one year we was going deer hunting, and it was supposed to snow, and Philip wasn't too anxious to go through his little ordeal again, and John had something going to school, and I can't remember what you were doing, but anyway, Julie said, I'm going no matter what. And so her and I went out and climbed the mountain out by Grantsville, and had a good time. We ended up getting a deer and coming back, but then there's you, and you were very, very independent, and tried to build a lot of stuff by yourself. I remember you were out in the garage and building something, and I can't remember what it was, and you came in to get me to cut one piece before, and so I went out and cut it and was going to help you, and you said, no, I don't need any more help. So finished the project by yourself, and so I don't know, it's you've always been one of the smartest kids I've ever dealt with, and as far as schooling, I was quite concerned about you because your grades weren't always the greatest. But then I found that I had a kid in high school that I was quite friendly with, and he got D's and D minuses, but he never did any of the work. But he aced every test he took. He didn't have any, and he joined the Navy. And when they gave him the aptitude test in the Navy, it was they said it was the highest one that had come through Salt Lake in years and years. So I figured that probably you were probably just a little bored with stuff that it was so easy for you. But anyway, you've done very well, and I was sorry that I didn't get to spend more time with you when you were younger, that we could have had a little more time to bond together. But I've enjoyed my time. I remember, the lake down to Lake Powell, and you and I and Julie down there and carrying these big rocks over, and the boats coming underneath, and trying to make sure that when we dropped those boulders that we were carrying clear out across the bridge, they didn't hit a boat. I mean, it would have done some real damage. But anyway, picking up geodes and climbing the mountains, and some of the times we had together when you got a little older. But I just am so happy with the 4 children that I have. All 4 of them have been a joy in my life. I just haven't had a lot of trouble with any of them. I've been very, very lucky. And I see other parents and the problems that they've had with, and I haven't had any. I had a brother asking me some questions and wanted some advice, and I said, you know what, I don't know what to tell you. I haven't had any experience of that at all that he was having with his kids. So anyway.
Oh, that's great. Any pearls of wisdom that you'd like to, pass on? Something that's, like something that, I mean, I'll give you an example. Okay. And this is, this is my example of what I look at in life and things that I would pass on is there's great quotes. I'm known like I love quotes, and I love books. I love to read, and I don't lend books. I buy books and I give them to people because my book, I'll go through and I'll mark them and I'll underline them and I'll bend the pages, and so I can find my quotes, and then I put my quotes in other things in various different formats and such. And some of the things, some of those quotes that they've shaped who I am, and helped me become what I am. And like one of the things is there's a great quote by Og Mandino from The Greatest Salesman in the World, and that's I will persist until I succeed. I was not delivered unto this world unto defeat, nor to the failure course in my veins. I'm not a sheep waiting to be prodded by my shepherd. I'm a lion, and I refuse to walk, to talk, to sleep with the sheep. The slaughterhouse of failure is not my destiny. I will persist until I succeed. And so that's something that I would, if I was going to say, to posterity and people in the future and people to listen and to take heed to, this is what helped me be what I am today. And so that's what I'm asking is, like, if there was something that you could say, you know what, I've done a lot of things wrong. I've done a lot of things right. This is what I've done right. This is what.
Well, you gave me that book, actually.
I don't know.
And I've read it 2 or 3 times. Because it is a very inspiring book. I liked it a lot. One thing that my brother used to say that I've implied in my life is if you think you're happy, you are. Happiness is a state of mind. And I always, people ask me, how are you doing? And I tell them, if I was any better, I couldn't stand it. And it's literally true, because my advice is, if you don't like where you're at, then move. If you don't like the job you're in, then do something else. I know people that hated their job, but I really liked my job. I worked for the same outfit for Harrington and Company for 40-something years. I started, I was 23 when I started, and I was 69 when I retired. So it was 46 years that I worked there. And there was some hard times through it, but the majority of the time I enjoyed going to work, and I spend a lot of time at work. And so if you're at a job that you don't like, then you better go find something else. But I never had a job that I didn't like, and I think it's your attitude and if some people look for the bad in things, then that's what they're going to find. But I've worked at at that job for a long time, but I worked at a lot of other things too. I was in the military and had a good time, and I had people talk at how terrible the basic training was, and I had it was like a big Boy Scout camp to me. I just enjoyed what I was doing, and when I worked out to Kennecott or I ran on construction and made a game out of what I was doing, backfilling trenches and just seeing how fast I could get it done and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, I really I think that people can be happy or not, and and it depends on their attitude the majority of the time. Of course, there's exceptions to that, but anyway.
No, it's a great point. It's people carry their environment with them. It's the story of the man that was at the well, and a traveler comes into town, and he says, "What kind of people live here?" He's like, "Well, what kind of people lived where you came from?" And he said, "Oh, they were terrible. They were horrible people. They'd steal from you, and they wouldn't take care of you." And the old man looked at him. He's like, "Well, you'll find the same here." And the guy said, "Well, thank you." And he moved on. A few minutes later, another traveler came in, and he said, "What kind of people live in this town?" He said, "Well, what kind of people were where you came from?" He said, "Well, I loved them. They were just the most generous, kind, well-rounded people, would do anything for you, take care of you. I was really, really sad to leave." And the old man said, "You'll find the same people here." And he said, "Well, thank you. I appreciate that." And he, went on his way. And somebody had overheard this and went over to the old man, and he said, "How is it you gave two totally different answers?" And the old man said, "Well, you carry your environment with you. And so wherever you go, that's what you're going to find." So it's just like you said, you can be unhappy at a job and move on down the road, but chances are you can be unhappy at that job too.
Probably so. Probably so.
But that's a great piece. That's a great piece of advice, is to, be happy and just do your best to be happy in all situations. And that's one thing. I know that's something that I've definitely taken and seen you do is it doesn't matter how miserable or awful a situation seems to be. It's like, it's okay. It's bearable. We can go through it. I had somebody tell me the other day, they're like, it's, I know you have a high tolerance for pain because you never say you have a high tolerance for pain.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, yeah, most people that say they have a high tolerance for pain, they do not. He's all, they're bragging it up because they don't. Yeah. He's all, people that do and that's kind of, I've seen that with you in work and different things like that. It doesn't matter how miserable or rough it seems to be. You just find a way to make it bearable or, enjoyable. So
there you go.
That's a great thing to pass on. Honestly, I gotta say this is it's been a real pleasure to reflect on some of your stories and a lot of your life, and when we first started this out, it was we started out with talking about grandma and the way you were raised, and really honestly, I'm grateful for you sharing those stories. It's given me a lot of insight, because it's like there's a lot of stories that you haven't shared on that personal level. So that's something I'm very, very grateful for, and I'm glad that you were willing to do that. I think that there are, just one story that I know that we never touched on that it's a great story in the aspect that I've always felt like it humanized my father. It made me feel like my dad wasn't just my dad. He wasn't just, sometimes you look at your father and you can think back to John and there's this aspect, this separation of your dad from reality, because it's like, here's this hard-nosed dude that can never be broke, that'll bust my ass if I do anything wrong. And this story, I've heard you tell it multiple times, and I can honestly say I've never seen you tell it without getting emotional, because that's what we do. We don't cry, we get emotional. That's what I always tell my kids is I don't cry. I'm just emotional. But that is of your cat. Believe it or not, so I was wondering if you were okay to share that. Just
I talked about the cat.
No, you did not. We brought it up, but we did not talk about your cat and what happened. I'm almost 1,000% positive. If we did, then my bad. So we can just move on from there. So I swear that we didn't tell the whole story,
Okay.
but it's all good because we're coming down the pike. We only got a few minutes left, but I would say, really, just thanks for this. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the episodes. We don't have to be done, but I think that maybe we stick a pin in it for a little while until we get some more content that we want to cover and share. Content that you'd like to share, and would be good. So, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, I appreciate this very much. I've been you gave me, I'll bet you, 3 or 4 journals that I never wrote a word in, and I was always going to, just because. But I'm a terrible speller, and it's hard to write, and I've done it before, but not very much. So I appreciate this opportunity to pass on some of my life.
Oh, for sure. And if you decide some more, that we can always revisit and circle back. But no, it's been a lot of fun, and really it's been, like I said, it's been a great opportunity for me to learn and to get a deeper understanding of kind of just where things are at, and your history and growing up, and grandma and grandpa and the way that they were, and your brothers, and Mary and Beth, and it's been really good. And I hope that people take the opportunity to watch and to listen and remember, because it's been a lot of fun, a lot of joy. So I appreciate that, and love you, Dad. And if you got nothing else to say, I think maybe this is wrap it up for a minute.
There you go.
All right. Y'all have a great night, and we'll chat with you soon.